Welcome back to the second episode of the podcast that does not have a name yet. I was literally just speaking to two of the boys beside Syndicate. I was like, or in the last podcast, thought of some names. Today, I was brushing my teeth, I thought of some names, but haven't got anything finalized just yet. But by the third episode, Lord knows, there's going to be a specific name and we're going to run with it. But this is a podcast in which we're going to be speaking about the art of letting your nuts hang. It's one of those things where I speak about it a lot on Yak since damn near the inception, like 2021, 2022, of you should let your nuts hang. And I've said it in so many different scenarios. I've said it when it comes to taking risks. I've said it when it comes to women. I've said it when it comes to just moving and maneuvering in everyday life. Because what you will realize if you have any kind of life experience is that it's never those who are the smartest, it's never those who necessarily work the hardest, it's never those who have the best upbringing. It's those who just let their nuts hang. Those are the people who get what they want in life. Because ultimately it's an attitude, it's just a way of life, it's a lifestyle. It doesn't require you to have anything other than knowing what you want and doing what you want or doing what you have to do to get there. That's fundamentally it. That's the general overview of what it looks like to quote unquote let your nuts hang. So I've got two of the boys here with me today. They'll each be speaking on their own experience, their own perspective on it, and then at the end I'll give a short story. I don't like to speak about myself on Yak. Syndicate, I always speak about not always, but I'm going more into my personal life. But I will share one story of letting my nuts hang, and through these three different perspectives, schools of thought, you're able to put the pieces, or you should be able to put the pieces of the puzzle together and be able to live a life of letting your nuts hang. Cool. So, two of the boys, you man, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah. My name is Antonio. I'm 26 years old. I joined the syndicate around like 2 years ago, and I feel like the topic of letting your nuts hang is something that it's like always been broached about, but never really gotten depth into. Because everybody, at least at one point in their life, like has that little fork in the road. Whether it's switching jobs, whether it was for me, just like leaving college because of the guys just wasn't for me, to be honest, and having a bunch of family pressure of even going to college because you don't want to be a little fuck up, that just doesn't go to college at all. But at every point in man's life, there is that turning point where he has to make a decision of either going for it or legit just like living life with regret and just like being not being able to look yourself in the eyes and be like, damn, I give it my all this in this life. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's why God put us here on earth to be the best version of ourselves, and you're highly disrespecting yourself and him if you're not trying to strive for to become the best version of yourself, whether that's physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in every aspect of life. I feel like as a man, when you're taking risk in general, you just feel more alive. Let's be honest. You feel like you're tapping into the side of you that God created for you to be more than just who you are right now. And I feel like in every person's life there is that fork in the road. And for me, it definitely was college, where I went to college just because my parents were just like, "Oh, well, what are you gonna do now?" And at that point, I was just like, "Fuck, I guess I'm gonna go. I guess I gotta go now." And so I went for like a semester or so. I did fire science. It was nothing crazy, but I was just like, "Bro, this shit ain't for me, bro. This is not for me." And the real turning point was when I got my first job. After that, I was like, "All right, college isn't for me. Let's hit the job market, right? I need a job." And this is when me and Archie spoke on this a little bit when I talked to him. My first job was at UPS. And if anybody has ever worked at UPS, they know, it's a late job. It's a like, kind of like a grinded out job, right? You have to pick up boxes and all this shit. And you have to be 21 to start driving for the company. And at that point, I was like 19. about to be 20, and they pulled me into the office and they asked me, "Would you like to be a driver when you're 21? Right? You're gonna make like $30 an hour, all these great benefits." And in my mind, I'm just like, "What the fuck? Yo, I'm not gonna about to be 40 years old driving a truck, getting chased by dogs, bro. This is not gonna be me." Like, and that's where like hit my. It really hit me where I was like, "Fuck, I gotta make some shit happen, bro." Like at this point in my life, I'm 18, 19 years old, don't really have money. I'm working this job, and it looks like I'm about to be a UPS driver, bro. And that's when like I really prayed on it. I was like, God, just give me a sense of direction, bro. Give me something, because I really don't know what the fuck I'm doing right now. And bro, honestly, the opportunity presented itself. I had some money saved up. Um, from like obviously when you're younger and shit, you were saving up money and everything. And yeah, bro, started what I'm doing now, and never looked back. Obviously, there's been challenges and everything, but you learn as you go, and it's part of life, bro. And if I would have never honestly took that risk, I probably would still be working at UPS, or probably been working at like, I don't know, some other fucking driving shit right now, bro. So when it comes to risk, dude, it really is like, if you're not taking it, man, like what's the whole point of living life comfortably? Be honest, man. So that's my little spiel, a little bit of a background and shit like that. And yeah.
Yes, some really good talking points for Antonio. Hey boys, this is Archie. You're a crypto bro. So Antonio brought a lot of good points, especially about taking risks, and you're essentially disrespecting God. Um, because you're really not pushing yourself to be the man that He wants you to be. Uh, so for me personally, the biggest risk I took, essentially letting my nuts hang, was when I was 22. Just 3 months after I got into crypto, I took out two different loans to trade it because I kept losing money. Essentially, I joined crypto in November 2021, which was the exact top of Bitcoin and crypto at $69,000. And then I was following a bunch of other retards who didn't know any better. And I just kept losing money. I kept putting in money. Every paycheck I would put in money, and this was my last semester of college too. So I was already graduating. I really didn't give a fuck about what happened with my grades because they were already pretty good. So I took out two loans. They were about, so initially two loans, right? So I'm talking 10K and then another 8K, so 18K, which is pretty much more than what I was making in a year at that time, because I was working part time. And I lost that. Actually, no, I ran that up to 45 or 50K in like a week. And then within the next few days, I lost all of it. Like I was down to like 1 or 2K. I don't remember anymore. But so after that, I essentially kept taking on more loans, right? These the stupid payday loans, and if you don't know that, they're basically loan shark companies that um, give you out loans for high interest, and you have to just pay them back weekly. And at that time, I was cocky and full of greed, and basically blinded by money, and thought I could, outplay the market and get all that money back. So I kept taking out these loans and I kept losing them. So that went on for a year basically. And then I finally realized, that I needed to stop. So I think I ran into Yak page early 2023 or end of 2022. And at that point, I realized, okay, I need to get another job because I can't keep living like this. I'm just wasting my time. I'm done with college, and I always knew I wanted to go, be a doctor and be in med school. So that was also on hold because I essentially put myself in the sinkhole that I, wasn't pulling myself out of anytime soon. So in probably as soon as I joined the syndicate, so this was when I was working I got a part-time job working at FedEx just to pay for the syndicate because T was posting on a story the prices are going to go up. So I messaged him. I was like, "Hey, yo, bro, can you can we do like a payment plan? I just started working at FedEx. I'll pay it within a month or 2 months. I don't remember exactly what it was." And he was nice enough to agree. So I worked for FedEx for 4 or 5 months along with my full-time job. So I was basically working like 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. at my clinic job. And then I was working from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. at FedEx. So I would just work, go home, sleep, go back to work for 4 months, 4 or 5 months. And it sucks, like Antonio worked at UPS for a long time, so he knows how it is. And anybody who's worked in any type of, physical or manual working job, they know it sucks. So the point that I'm getting at is that during that entire time of a year and a half of me putting myself through hell and absolute turmoil, I learned a lot of lessons that I wouldn't have otherwise as far as managing money goes, right? I got exposed to crypto trading. I learned a lot about stocks, investments, economy. And not only that, I graduated college 3 years ago. It's going to be 4 years next year, which is not typical for anybody wanting to go to med school. However, I have also saved up, I would say at least half of the amount that I would have to just to pay for med school. If you guys don't know, which most people don't, the average like med school as cost of attendance is about 250 to 300K, including tuition, cost of
It's
living.
that much.
So it's that much, bro. It's that much.
Damn.
Which is absolute fucking bullshit, but that's how it is, at least in the US. So that was essentially my reason to get into crypto trading, right? Because I didn't want to, because by the time people are done with med school and residency, your loan is worth 400 or 500K at the bare minimum, right? So you're basically paying 150 to 200,000 in interest after you're done with your residency. And sure, you can afford to pay for it, but why would I want to pay that much interest when I can just do something else, save up the money for it, and avoid paying for it fully? So not only that, it gave me a skill that I wouldn't have had otherwise, that I can use my entire lifetime now. Trading and investing. That's something that a lot of people don't learn or get into until they're in their 30s, mid 30s. So I'm grateful that I took that risk. Yeah, sure, I paid. We call it paying tuition in crypto or investing when you start losing money. So I paid about, I don't know, 40, 45K worth total tuition, but I've made that back plus more. So that's going to put a lot of pressure off of me when I'm in med school. So I don't have to worry about, my loans and all that stuff. And I've also met a lot of people at my job because of the time that I spend working. If I went straight from, college into med school, I would have lacked the social skills, the clinical experience that I would have had if I, wasn't working at my clinical job. So that already puts me ahead of most students that are going to be in med school. That prepared me to be a better doctor than most doctors, because a lot of doctors, I take care of my dad, right? I take him to his appointments. I've met a lot of different doctors, and a lot of them just don't really give a fuck about you. As bad as that sounds, they don't really relate to patients. They don't fully understand what the families goes through, right? They don't understand that they don't have all the answers. They're scared. They're confused. So just because I took that one risk, it indirectly led me to having so many qualities and traits that I otherwise wouldn't have had if I didn't go through all the different experiences that I went through over the past 3 to 4 years. And a lot of that also comes from being in syndicate, and that's also taking a risk, and that's just letting my nuts hang. And I was pretty much like, I don't know, $10 or $20 from my bank account when I messaged T, like, hey, I want to get into the syndicate. This is my situation. Are you okay with it? And he
I
always,
remember you saying, he's like, I literally invested and you said it a few months after the fact, like once you started making money in crypto, but you was like,
yeah.
yeah, I literally invested my entire bank account to join the syndicate, and I mean, look at you now, killing it off.
Like that's my definition of like letting your nuts hang, right? Like you have pretty much no money in your bank account, but you know that this money that you're putting into something is going to be worth 10, 100,000 folds much more than what you're putting in. And which at that time it was, I think, like 350 or 400 pounds, which is nothing compared to how much
It's
I've,
10x now.
how much I've took out from the syndicate, all the connections that I've made, right? All the mindset changes that I've made. So anybody that I've talked to that I haven't talked to, I guess, over the past 2 or 3 years, anytime somebody talks to me, they're like, "You've changed. You weren't like this before." And I'm like, in my head, obviously, I'm like, "Yeah, I have changed because I went through all this shit, and it all happened because I took a stupid risk." Like if you tell anybody, I wouldn't tell this to anybody, right? Take out a loan as a 3-month-old trader and use that money to trade with. That's just retarded and horrible financial advice. And there was something about it at that time that nobody could have stopped me from doing it, no matter who I talked to. I just knew, I just felt it. It's that gut feeling we always talk about, right? That I just felt like this was for me. And it took a year and a half before I started to realize that, this was for me, and I'm glad that I went through all of this. So well, I can add on more to it, but I'll let you guys, talk about it more too, or if there's something you want to add on to it.
Nah, that's dope. That's dope for real. And there's some things that both of you said, which I want to touch on real quick before I even speak on mine, because one thing that you said at the end there, Archie, was that you always had a gut feeling. And that's the thing with people who, or what I've noticed with people who quote unquote made it in life, for whatever reason, whether it's been induced on them from society, from their environment, or it's been something that's been within them, they have always felt somewhat different. They've always felt like they've been cut from a different cloth. And it's that feeling, even though it might not manifest immediately, even though it might not show up just like that, it's that feeling that allows them and gives them the confidence that even if they take a quote unquote risk and it doesn't work out, they're still going to find a way to make it work out on the back end. So it's like when you were speaking about you paying tuition. I never heard of that phrase before, but it's actually a really cool like ideology almost of you have to pay tuition regardless. Like the game is the game. Everything costs something, whether that's your time, whether that's your energy, whether that's your money. But you're always going to have to pay some kind of cost. But if you're not willing to pay the cost yourself, your life is going to be that cost. Living a life of where you can't ever get anything that you want. Living a life to where you have to constantly ask your boss, can you go to the toilet? Or if you can go on holiday. Living a life to where if there's a girl in the street and you're attracted to her, you know in your heart of hearts you don't have what it takes to get her. That's the cost of not being that guy, not being that person who lets your nuts hang. And my perspective on letting your nuts hang, this is something that Antonio touched on earlier, is this idea of disrespecting God. Because fundamentally we're here in this world for a specific reason. It's not even to make money, it's not to go traveling, it's not to drive cars or any of that. Fundamentally it's here to further his kingdom and to serve him. But at the same time, and how I think about things, and it's low-key morbid, but what it does, it keeps me in check, is that you just have to think about on your deathbed, whenever that is, even if you're lucky enough to get to that point, because I mean, most people, they don't die on their deathbed, but regardless, on your deathbed, imagine you're laying there thinking about your life. And again, you're not going to be thinking about the risks you've taken. You're going to think about the L's that happened. You're not going to be thinking about any of that. You're going to be thinking about the life that you lived, the memories that you created, and how much of your potential you actually utilized. Those are what you're going to be thinking about. But imagine on your deathbed, God comes down and plays a video, plays a movie of what your life could have looked like if you had taken that risk, or if you had shot that shot, or if you rolled the dice that one time. I feel like that's like the worst reality you could possibly live in. I could have had that. I could have been this. This could have been my life, but because I wanted to play it safe, because I wasn't willing to let my nuts hang, I had to settle for the life that I had. And it's through this revelation, if you want to call it, that it unearths a certain attitude, it unearths a certain mindset which you move through life with, because you don't want to go without. You don't want to essentially miss out on the life that you could have lived. Was it a Syndicate? It must have been a Syndicate. Or I was speaking about it to someone earlier where, I don't know, it was in the Telegram actually, and someone asked me about God's will and should he go down X path or should he go down Y path. I was like, listen, it's not even about none of that. And it followed the parable of the talents which is written in the book of Matthew chapter 25, I believe it is. And you as a man, you have been instilled with a certain talent, a certain gift. And the parable of the talent talks about that a master was going away for holiday or whatever, and he gave some of his servants his money to look after, to invest in. So he gave one of his servants 5 talents. And by the way, 1 talent was worth 20 years of wages. So let's say if the average income is 50k a year. So he gives one servant 5 talents, which is, say, what's that? 5 mil. Gives another servant 2 talents, so 2 mil. And gives another servant 1 talent, 1 mil. So he gives these servants this money. I'm going away. Grow this money for me. He says, so the one of the 5 talents takes it, invests it. When the master comes back, he gives him 10 talents. And the master says, well done, you good and faithful servant. The second servant, who has 2 talents, invests it, brings it back, come back to 4 talents, doubled it. Again, the master said, well done, you good and faithful servant. And the third servant, who had the least talents, so he had really the least amount of risk, he took his talent and rather than investing it, he buried it in the ground. And with burying it in the ground, he comes back to the master. He says, oh, I didn't want to lose your money. I didn't want to lose out on anything, so I buried it for you. And the master said, you wicked and slothful servant. And it's one of those things to where that's what letting your nuts hang looks like. Or really, that's the opposite of it. You have to live a life of saying, I won't go without. To paint a picture for what you want your life to be, and through that, find a vehicle which will allow you to live that life. So now to speak on me personally, I mean, virtually everything in my life is a byproduct of letting my nuts hang in some way, shape or form. But I'm going to speak on college, or really dropping out of college. Because even me going to America for university, as being from England, if you're not aware, Americans, kind of Archie alluded to, and Antonio, you have to take out a loan to go out and do that. But if you're an international student, you can't take out the same loan that an American student can. So I had the dream of going to America from a young age. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had the dream. And then when I was 16, the opportunity presented itself with football. So I had a trial, passed the trial, and I go through this agency to allow me to go to America for university. So playing football, I'm on scholarship. So virtually everything's paid for. Don't have to worry about debt, none of that, glory to God. So I was doing this, all good, all smooth. I was at one university, and I'm only going into different universities, but I was at one university, then I transferred. Then I transferred to the second university, and this was like, you ever played, or anyone else played a sport, or really just kind of lived any kind of life, and you going into it with a certain expectation, and you're thinking, oh, it's just sweet, it's going to be good, and then it's the complete opposite. Bro, that year, I'm not going to say the end what do you call it, the end results, but we lost so many more games than we won, and it was brutal because we was getting slapped about every single game. And it was that time that I was like, okay, but uni is cool and that, or college is cool, but there has to be something more, there has to be something bigger than this. And then it's when I transferred to my third university where I eventually stumbled across the skill that allowed me the ability to drop out of university. But even with me dropping out, for context, I'm Nigerian. So anyone who's Nigerian or is from an African household knows what it's like with having your parents go to university. Like, it's a very big thing for them that their son, their oldest son, their only son, has gone to America and gone to university. And for this son to say to the parent, I'm dropping out, of course, it came with a whole bunch of, what's the word to describe it? It came with a whole bunch of, because I don't want to swear either. I don't swear no more. Basically, a lot of aversion. I think that's the right word to describe it, aversion. To where my mom would call me, she'd call me crying. She'd be like, T, I'm praying for you. I'm doing all these things. Boom, boom, boom. Like, I don't think you should drop out. I think you should just stay. My dad was more chill. He was like, okay, well, you do what you want to do. But as long as you've got something bigger than what you got than university, go for it. But my mom, she would be calling me crying. She was sending me texts and all of this, all of that. Then she would get aunties and uncles to call me and say, stay in university, like you got so much potential, this and that. But essentially, I said to myself at the start of the semester, and bear in mind, I'm still playing football or college soccer, I'm still doing school, so I was still having to do essays, and I'm now leveraging this skill set to make money. Like, my life, that like 4 to 5 month period, was arguably the busiest I've ever been in my life, but it was also like I literally had no free time to do anything. I was just straight working. Like, I would wake up, do what I had to do, like leveraging the skill set, go to school, go to classes, go to practice, go to gym, come back, leverage the skill set again, finish schoolwork, and then repeat. I did that for 4 to 5 months, but I said at the start of that semester, by the time I drop out, I'm going to be flying business class back from where I was to England. And oh, glory to God, it came to pass. So it's one of those things, to just round out this segment, is, again, I said it earlier, you have to live a life where you're saying, I'm not going to go without. And then through that, that's what it looks like to let your nuts hang in a quick nutshell. So that's 3 different perspectives, 3 different stories. But, and this is a question for both Antonio and Archie. For you, because I know with me as well, there was that almost that visceral moment where it's like, the life that I live right now, I do not want to continue going down this path. So for you, what was that moment? And then what were your subsequent actions from that moment? Antonio, you can go first, bro.
Yeah, well, for me, honestly, I think it all kind of started when I was brought into the office and were asking me, "Hey, would you, when you're 21, like to sign up to do this?" Because for me, that was kind of, I just had the epitome of, like, you know how they showed like a scenario of you living that certain life, and I was just like, bro, I do not want to live that life. You know what I mean?
They painted that picture
And at
for
that
you.
point, yeah, it painted a picture from, that like slow motion when someone's saying something, and then you picture that scenario out. Yeah, for me, it was that, bro. I was just like, dude, like, don't get me wrong, it's a necessary job, but to me, bro, I was just like, bro, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do this until like, well, I'm 40, 50, then retire, and then I'm with a pension and I'm set. Just like, I don't know, bro. But to me, honestly, that was like the fork in the road for me. Until like, bro, I need to do something. Because if I'm here by the time I'm 21, they're gonna ask me again, and I'm probably gonna say yes at that point because I'm broke as shit as well. Or with the little money I had, it definitely wasn't enough to like do anything until I obviously had to take out a loan as well. But yeah, man, it was definitely that epitome moment of like of the scenario of me living that life, and I was just like, nah, bro. And then, bro, honestly, bro, I think God has basically been in my life the whole time because I did not know what the fuck I wanted to do, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you.
That divine
Like there was
guidance,
that
innit?
period of my life. What happened?
That divine guidance.
Yeah, bro, it must have been. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you guys like, oh yeah, bro, it hit me. The epitome hit me, bro. Like, I had a dream. God told me what to do. Like, nah, bro. Honestly, I've never been that lost in my life, and I don't think I ever will again. Thank God, not in career aspect at least. But yeah, it definitely was that moment, and I prayed. I prayed like every day, bro. I was just like, bro, just shine the path a little bit, and I'll walk it. You know what I mean? Just like give me a sense of direction, and as soon as you take that first step and you hold his hand, bro, you're gonna be alright. If you keep your head on straight, you know what I mean, and keep God first, I think you'll be okay. Because I know there's a lot of people in the group who believe in God, but I feel like there's a big difference in believing something and walking it, right? So if you're really that confused, just ask God for guidance and see what happens, right? Keep an open mind and yeah, bro. But it was at that exact moment when I was in the office for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100. And it perfectly describes the scripture walk by faith and not by sight. It's like, and you said it, you had to take that first step yourself, and God's like, okay, well, he's trusting in me. He's actually walking by faith. So then through that, it's like he just holds your hand basically and just takes you to where he wants you to go. It's a feeling like no other, but you can't experience that if you're just cowering away, shying away, and not doing what you know you're supposed to do.
Facts.
Yeah, for me, I think so. I was a very materialistic person before. Before, as in, like when I was still in college, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'll be rich. I'm gonna have this, and this. So that's essentially what led me to taking the risk that like I wanted like an Audi RSQ8, plan like any
I hear
like
it.
I was like, all right, I'll take this loan out, tenfold it, and then I'll buy it next year. And it didn't go that way at all. So I was very materialistic, wanting to live in a big household, being able to buy whatever I want to. So it was a very, naive and greedy mentality, which again, that's what led me into crypto as well. But over the next year and a half, as I wasn't really as religious as I am now. Like my mom is, religious, spiritual, so she's the only one in the household really that is like that. So I wasn't really following her or anybody really at that time. But then when I stumbled across Yak, and I've talked about this before in the chats, there was something that stood out to me because he would always talk about God, and it doesn't matter what religion you're from or who you believe in or if it's just the universe in general. But there's more to it than just you, right? There's a higher power that has gifted you with certain abilities that you need to utilize, and put yourself out there and make the best use of it. So it took me, a few of your posts to realize that. And then finally it just hit me. I was like basically down bad, like, like rock bottom. We're talking rock bottom. I think you talked about it one of your voice notes too. Something, about being, and until you've been at the rock bottom, you don't know what it's like. I'm completely butchering that, but you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was at that time, and then I just realized like this is not it. Like I would just wake up, open TradingView, look at the prices of coins, and go to my job, go to my other job, and it was almost like I was an autopilot, right? That's just how my subconscious mind was programmed at that time, and something just hit me that I need to change, right? Especially when uh, I saw you posting before. This was before I was in the syndicate, so I would see you post about uh, other people winning and how their mentality was. So that kind of just hit me like I have this mentality deep down, but it's not just out there, right? So that's when I realized like I need to take this first step and also do something differently. And again, just taking that risk of joining the syndicate, because if you think about it, there's probably hundreds, maybe even thousands of these communities out there that tell you they're different, right? But how many of them are actually different, right? I think the syndicate is actually the only one that's truly different and exceptional, and probably the only one that is going to be long-standing and for generations. So again, a lot of my thought process also just comes from gut feeling, and it's always something that I've relied on over the past 2 years. I just leave it up to God, right? That's also in my definition of just letting your nuts hang, where you don't really care or give a f about what's going to happen because God's with you. It doesn't matter what path you go through, because I have taken many different paths that I would have never imagined to, things that were out of my control. But now that I look back on it, it's led me to be the person that I am today and want to be going on and grow into. So it also just brings out my natural self that I've always wanted to be. So the way that I am now, I had always imagined myself to be from like middle school up until college. I was a lot of your, thought process also comes from my childhood and how, your relationships were with your parents, how you were treated, without going into too many details. But I think a lot of people know about that. So a lot of that didn't come into fruition until the past 2 or 3 years, and it's only getting better. Like I have interviewed for like 3 or 4 jobs over the past year, and they've always told me like you were like the first person that I interviewed, and I don't think I want to interview anymore just because I like your personality, and you
Cool.
just stand out to me. Like I don't know what I did. I just talk. I literally just talk and tell them why I want the job. It's not like I rehearse for it, because rehearsing is gay in my opinion. It's not true to yourself. So I can just walk in, talk to somebody, charm them without even knowing that I'm charming them. It's just how I am, and how God has helped me program myself for the past 2 years. And a lot of it also comes from the syndicate and listening to voice notes, and reading what other people go through, listening to their experiences and putting it into perspective and implementing it. And a lot of it also comes without even realizing it, right? So it's just, that's also another definition for me of just letting your nuts hang, is just being yourself. Literally just go out there, be how you want to be, shameless, ruthless, whatever it is. Just be yourself. Like, you feel like you're yourself. You're not putting on a face. Like when you're done with the conversation, you don't go back and, think about, oh, why did I say that? You didn't, because you just talk like you would normally, and it just all comes out. And your energy frequency, which is also another thing we talked about, it just aligns with them. It's something that they have never experienced before. So when the person, whoever it is you're talking to, feels that, they also have that chemical reaction in their body to where, they like that. They want to be in your presence, like they are drawn towards you just because there's not a lot of people like that.
And it's what playing the game of zero competition tangibly looks like. Because as you said, it starts off with you learning, you bossing up, and with most people, really and truly, it's all it is just having something that is already inside them unleashed. I've done I did either a tweet or a quick voice note on there's three kinds of people. Those who have it, that's the first type. Those who have it, but it needs to be unleashed, and those who just don't have it. That's how I perceive the world. There's three kinds of people. Truth be told, most people are at two. I was damn near at two. And it's cool. One of those things where, whether it's something that happens to you, like a certain, like I say, I've not had one, thankfully, but let's say like a near-death experience, where it's like it unleashes something within you. It's like, okay, now I have to let my nuts hang because one day I am going to die. I am going to leave this world. Or it can be something like a environment or something like the Syndicate where it unlocks that psychological programming that, again, it's already inside you. And one of my favorite quotes is from Tim Grover, and he says, everything that you need to be great is already inside you. And it's true. For virtually, I was playing with my key for so long, virtually everything when it comes to whether it's bossing up in life, whether it's becoming the man who God created you to be, whether it's making money, whether it's attracting a dime, all of these traits, all of these characteristics are already inside you. Now, whether you can leverage it or not, that's a different question. But really and truly, unless you're in like the bottom 20-30% of men, which most people who are on Yak aren't, I'd say, all it is a matter of unleashing that, and then once it's in you, it's in you. And it's like what Nipsey Hussle said. Once it's in you, it can't be taken away. It's with you forever. Regardless of anything in life, regardless of where I, Archie, or Antonio go, we're always going to be perceived in a different light than everyone else because we move different. We radiate different. Our frequency is different. Our energy is different. And as Archie said, it's not even something that we try to do. It's just a byproduct of being who you are. And because of that, you don't have to try. I don't think people truly understand what it means to, when I say with women specifically, like you don't have to try, because just the proposition which you present when you're talking, how you're moving, the way you carry yourself, she looks at you like, well, I ain't seen this before. Just like with the interview with Archie, they're looking at Archie, they're like, we ain't seen someone of this caliber before. It's that energy, it's that moxie, it's that thing that once it's in you, it's in you. But the final little section that I thought of just now, which I feel like would be dope for everyone listening, but it's also like a reflective exercise on yourself, is go back to the younger version of you, whatever age that is. What would you tell him with what you know now, in regards to letting your nuts hang? And why I think this is important is because there's so many people listening right now where they're like on that, seesaw, where it's like it's on one angle and then it's slowly coming up. So many people are like at that point to where they're so close to unlocking and becoming who they're supposed to be, but there's still that little bit of fear, there's still a little bit of doubt, there's still that little bit of I'm not too sure. So for you personally, what is that thing that you tell your younger self where it's like, bro, just let your nuts hang? Like, what's like whether it's like a saying, whether it's one word or it's like a mantra or an affirmation, what's something that you would tell your younger self?
Archie, you want to go first or go first?
Oh, you can go.
Dude, something I would tell my younger self. Oh God, bro, that's a good ass question. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Honestly, if you would have asked me this a couple of years ago, I probably would have been like, "Yo, don't be a bitch, just do it." You know what I mean? And that works. I mean, if that works for you, it works for you. But for me, I try to go the kind of the opposite way in terms of like if you don't let your nuts hang, right? What are the consequences of that of your future family? That's kind of where I am right now. Like my wife, my kids, my future wife, my future kid. Like, are they gonna be living the life that they are made or are supposed to be, right? Because it's my job. Like, am I doing everything in my power to set up that foundation of that next chapter? Because I know that chapter is gonna be coming probably in a couple of years or something. Am I setting them up more so than myself? Because I feel like part of even becoming a man is like, right, taking care of your shit, but it becomes a whole new level once you have to take care of like people around you, you know, whether it's your parents or your spouse or significant other and stuff. I feel like that's what goes through my mind now, right? More so than back in the day, we've been like, yo, bro, stop being a little a little bitch and shit like that. But yeah, man, it's just building foundations for my future family for sure.
Cool, bro.
Yeah, I would say something, similar along the lines of what Antonio said is, just do it. But also just, put yourself out there. Especially for me, I basically wasted 4 years of college without having any social life just because of how I was perceived. In middle school and high school, I had a lot of self-doubt and just didn't believe in myself. So, which I'm sure a lot of other young teenagers and young adults go through. But if I could just go back, I would just tell myself, like, just put yourself out there, experience different things. If you're not in college, make friends, go out, talk to people, get to know their story. People love talking about themselves. So the easiest way to make friends and just make connection is to just ask someone, if you're being genuinely interested, which I always have been, and just asking them, you know, uh, tell me about yourself, whatever question it is that you want to ask them, you let them talk, and then now you have a connection. So if I did that in college, I would have, had a lot more connections that I have now, would have had a lot more memories that I could have looked back upon that I don't have, which is okay because I still have a lot of life to live. So it would have just given me a head start.
I rate it. So we have do it for your family. We have put yourself out there. And what I would say, and like what Antonia said, like the older version of me would have said something like don't be gay, something like that. Just do it, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
as I've, especially this year, as I've got closer to God and just like I damn near like recommitted everything over to Him, what I'd say is twofold. One, know who God says you are, and two, walk in like God sent you, because it's one of those things, especially the latter one, walking like God sent you. One of my favorite voice notes that I've personally dropped inside the Syndicate is the art of walking in like God sent you, because it's such a beautiful picture to like imagine a movie or something like Sims. Like, imagine playing Sims and you, the person controlling the sim. Imagine you're just dropping that person in, and you're saying, "I am governing you. I am the creator of the world, or the world that sim is living in. You can do anything because you are my child." Like, what would your life look like if you actually not only internalize that, but move with that manner? Like, what kind of things would you be doing that you're not currently doing? What kind of risks would you take? What kind of shots would you shoot? And it's one of those things to where in Genesis 1 verse 26 it says we are created in God's image. Therefore, it's true. You were literally sent from God to be here for a reason. So God did quite literally put you here. Therefore, you can walk in that power. And once you do, and once you get that revelation of who you are, you tap into a side of you that unleashes everything, unleashes the character of what it means to be that guy and to become who you're meant to be. So yeah, it's a beautiful reminder. Like, I constantly tell myself this, but like, the world is yours. As long as you do what you gotta do, the world is yours, bruv. So yeah, that was a dope podcast. Is there any final things that you man want to say relating to whether it's the art blend that's letting your nuts hang or just anything in general?
I'll go ahead, Antonio.
Go ahead, Arch. You're good,
Okay.
bro.
All I'll say is, be conscious of your thought process. Pay attention to what's going on in your mind and what you're thinking about. Be present. That's something that I have been doing a lot for the past 2 to 3 months, and I noticed a big change in how I view everything and how people approach me and treat me. Because a lot of your energy makes a huge difference in who you are and how people see you. So every morning, just before you pick up your phone, reflect on everything that you have. Just be grateful, and then just idealize what you want your day to be like. And before you go to bed, do the same thing. So just before you wake up, make sure your head's clear. After you wake up, before you're out there, hustling, doing whatever you're doing, just have some peace, have a clear mindset on what you want to do, and go from there.
Amen. That was good, bro. Honestly, I would probably say optimism. I feel like we live in a world where a lot of people see the bleak side of life, bro. Like the fact that you're able to wake up every day and experience life in general is a blessing. So, and whatever you want, if you're lost or confused or don't really know what to do, first and foremost, pray on it, right? Walk by faith, not by sight, and I just ask God for guidance. To be honest, that's literally what shaped kind of who I am. And one other thing I would say is stay sober and vigilant. Right, your body's a temple, and in order to to receive that wisdom, right, that little voice, that little voice in the back of your head, you got to be able to like digest that in terms, and be able to perceive God's wisdom. And honestly, it would be those two things: just optimism and stay sober and vigilant, boys.
That's a tough.
That last part is huge. What you said about perceiving, understanding wisdom from God is if you told that to somebody that's a square basically, or somebody who just is a degenerate, they'll just basically tell you like fuck off or what the fuck are you talking about. But if you tell that to somebody, just as an example in Syndicate, most people hopefully will understand what that means. And I think I'm glad you touched on that. And it's not something that I talked about, but I think that also aligns with me internally for the past 2 to 3 months, is where I have started doing that. And I have started praying more than I would. So I'm seeing and getting all these ideas and seeing the world, I guess, differently in the way that I want to, and getting treated the way that I desire and deserve. But it's also because I'm able to, understand all these messages that I am getting from God.
Amen and amen. Bro, what a flipping podcast. What a podcast. Rounding it up, I hope and pray that there is some things that you gained, which you learned, which you're able to apply from your life within this podcast. Because the reason why the boys are here from the Syndicate is because I wanted you to hear different perspectives. We've all been through different things. They've they both joined the syndicate at different points, and through all of these things, you can begin to put a picture in your own mind of what it actually looks like to let your nuts hang. And the scary thing is, I really and truly, we're just getting started. Like, we're all in our 20s. We're still very, very young. Imagine 10 years from now, 20 years from now, once there's M's in the bank, houses all over the place. Like, where we're going, the trajectory is insane. I always have a word for the boys in the syndicate for the year and what we're aiming for. And what we're aiming for right now is what I call the fast lane, to where 2026, how I perceive it and the way in which I feel God is telling me the direction for the brotherhood is that it's now time that we enter the fast lane. Meaning, if you're driving your car on a motorway if you're English or highway if you're American, you know there's 3 lanes, or typically there's 3 lanes. And it's the people in the fast lane who, they're the most switched on because they're going fast, but they're also the ones who get to their destination in the most efficient and effective manner because they're so switched on. They're not worried about all the noise, kind of what Antonio said before with regards to listening to God. We're not worried about none of the worldly stuff. We're not worried about what's happening on news, what's happening on social media, or none of that nonsense. We're locked in on our mission, on our relationship with God, and the things that we've been called to do. And as long as we're in alignment with that, I mean, who can stop us? It says in, let's see if I remember, Psalms 56:3 or 56 verse 13, something like, if God is for you, who can be against you? It's in one of the Psalms, and it's such a beautiful reminder of we can do it all through Him. So yeah, whole podcast. I don't know when I'll be uploading this, but this will be coming to you soon. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. If there's something that you want the boys and I in the syndicate to speak on, a certain topic or a certain question, comment it or message me on Instagram. Either page, the main one, like the one at the underscore, or the older one. And if you want to join us within the syndicate, message me on either Instagram or Telegram. And as long as you're a good fit, because I'll be honest, most people get rejected, but as long as you are a good fit, we'll get you inside and busting up with the boys. God bless you, Rev.